Hi, I'm your host Vasco Duarte. Welcome to the Scrum Master Toolbox podcast, where we share tips and tricks from Scrum Masters around the world. Every day, we bring you inspiring answers to important questions that all Scrum Masters face day after day. Hello, everybody. Welcome to one more episode of this Agile in Hardware Week. And we have with us for this episode, Henna Torkkola and Maarit Laanti. Hey, welcome both of you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
So let me introduce our guests. Henna is an Agile coach at Wärtsilä's Marine R&D. They do a lot of things, but she specializes in the future fuels and new product development processes. And we're going to hear about one of those projects in a second. She has a background in the banking industry, and she's guided Agile transformations, facilitated events, and expanded her expertise also through research and training. Henna holds a master's in human resource management and is passionate about Agile's cultural impact. Maarit, on the other hand, has already been a guest on the podcast, so make sure you check out that episode where she discusses with her colleague Rami lean and agile financial planning. The link is in the show notes. She's a pioneering Agile coach and also the author of the first Agile PhD regarding Agile at scale. She has a track record of transforming organizations since 2006 and co-founded Wiki Agile, the current company that she works at, and has been recognized globally for her contributions to Lean and Agile. She's also a pioneer in scaling Agile methods and led a significant transformation at Nokia and contributed significantly also to the creation and development of what is now known as the SAFe framework. That's a short intro, but now, Henna and Maarit, let's set the stage. Henna, let's start with you. Could you walk us through the origins of this new product development program? What was the initial vision and how did it evolve over time?
Yes. So basically, today I'm going to speak about this one new engine development program where I've been working since 2018 and where we have also used kind of an agile approach or agile methods starting from that year. This new product development program is only kind of a one example from Wärtsilä Engine's R&D. And we need to say that in this department or within this R&D, we have lots of other different ways of working also. So we have the traditional Kate model in use still with some projects, and we have also department working according to scaled agile framework. And then we have this program which has used more the hybrid agile way of working approach.
It's kind of great that you were very courageous at that time to try to work with new methods, and that this kind of like a new thinking was giving an opportunity, and the management had a vision that there could be something totally different also in the future.
Yep, exactly. So it was kind of a new thing when we started that, and Maarit was also during those days working for Wärtsilä, so we have common memories from those times. And during that time, we actually also set some objectives for our way of working, and in order to kind of secure the successful product development and also the fulfillment of the business case during that time. And those objectives we set were related to improved reactions to changes, also the quicker releases, better co-creation with the stakeholders and also with the end customers, and also regarding those self-organizing teams, how to build those. And then, of course, the transparency and cross-functionality in general. And most of all, maybe one most important objectives was also to increase the satisfaction of the program team and how to work with them together.
And I remember you had already some experience from the software side that this was possible. And this I have seen in many companies being as a one generic trait, that companies, product companies, where software is one part of the product, they kind of see that, okay, agile methods are working in large scale in the software side, And then they start to ask if it would be possible to actually start to use those methods also to benefit the hardware development. And this trend I see is going on now in many different companies around the world.
Yeah, we need to find the way and kind of approach how to mix and how to work together also with the software side, but also try out these agile methods in the hardware development where we have some maybe things that are not always fitting exact to the existing agile frameworks, and we need to fine-tune those a bit.
So coming back to that new product development, so it's important that we set that as the context, right? This is new product development, even though the output product or the outcome of this new product development is a real hardware, like a marine engine, which is like a room-sized engine for ships. But this new product development context is very important, right? So, Henna, tell us a little bit more, like why did that thought of, hey, maybe we can benefit from Agile in this new product development. How did that thought come about?
We wanted to have something new, and maybe the reaction to changes was one of the most important, that world is changing all the time around us, and there are new requirements coming, and we need to have way to cope and fulfill those changing requirements. So that was maybe one of the most important things in the beginning. And we wanted to kind of start some new way of working also within the organization to go forward and develop the newest engine. And actually now we can say that this new engine is already published. So the Wärtsilä newest engine, Wärtsilä 25, is the one where we have used these agile methods.
I think there is this kind of like a forward thinking in these kind of companies that are pioneering these methods, that the Wärtsilä top management wanted to know what was going on in the software department, and they wanted themselves to be educated in agile methods. And then they were kind of saying that, okay, let's try to also apply this elsewhere and let's see what the benefits are. And I think one key to the success was also, I was giving a training at that time for the hardware department, and not many people were actually so excited about the training, but there were a few very excited people who actually started to pilot this and take it forward. And of course, Henna has done a significant job there, being an agile coach and bringing these practices in, not necessarily saying that this is an agile practice, but bringing the practices like, hey, this could help us one by one.
Exactly. Yeah, and speaking about the values there behind, we have all the time had the approach that maybe we are not always speaking about the agile. Instead, we are just speaking about those values behind the approach. And the leaders of this program has had a very significant role also in the beginning, really, when they speak with all the team members about this, and they believe in these values behind the agile. So that was one of the key elements, I would say, in the beginning.
So when we were before we were recording, when we were preparing, you also talked about how this new way of working, right? Because that was one of the goals for this new product development, to introduce a new way of working. You talked about how you organized, and I think this is really important. So tell us a little bit more, Henna. How was that program, this new product development program, set up differently from what was already kind of the traditional way of doing product development at Wärtsilä? What were the key differences?
Maybe we cannot say that actually the way of working was the goal, but anyway, the goal was to fulfill the changing requirements, and that was the way how to do it, to set this agile way of working. But since the beginning, we have had this kind of approach that we have involved the whole cross-functional value chain, and that means that we have had, for example, representatives from the manufacturing, from the sourcing, from the services, from the sales, etc. So the whole kind of a value chain has been part of the program since the very early steps and since the very beginning.
Even customers, right?
Customers have been also involved in some cases, but we have had the customer representatives from that, people from that department since the very beginning. But also during the journey, we have had some dialogues with the real customers or potential customers.
And I would say that this is very different to traditional approach, which typically is that organizations start a project that is an in-house. You in-house take the requirements maybe from a previous similar equipment, and then you run it, and then you kind of just place the orders for the subcontracting or place the orders for the suppliers. And here you really kind of thought this holistically and from the value stream point of view, which is very, very different way of organizing work instead of organizing it into many projects.
Yep, and we have tried to have this kind of a setup and structure, which is kind of supporting the collaboration also over the organizational boundaries and with all internal and external stakeholders, suppliers, customers, etc. So having
this is a very important change, though, because you talked about, okay, so we needed to adapt to these changes in requirements that were coming in, and we needed to do this with a significant change in how we organize work. You were following agile ideas, principles, and values in a context where more traditional product development projects had been executed. And you mentioned, we started involving the wider value chain, which is kind of what we would call value stream usually. But how did you do that? Like, can you elaborate on how this transition from an R&D driven project to a whole value chain agile project happened in practice?
In practice, what we did and are still doing actually is that we have been inviting and involving those people from the different organizations to join in our different agile, or even though we are not always using the term agile, but in our common events and ceremonies. So for example, in our daily or weekly nowadays follow-ups or stand-ups, our common planning days, we have those remotely or face-to-face, and people from the different parts of the organization are part of those events. Also the regular retrospectives, we are keeping the retrospectives with the bigger end-to-end value stream program team, and we have had also, for example, retrospectives for the assemblers. And then we have had with some sourcing representatives, some retrospectives. So we are these different events, we have been in practice, I would say, involving the people. And of course, we are also setting the targets or the objectives together with the representatives from the different parts of the chain so that they are committed to the same targets and we are working according to the same way and towards the same targets together. So that has been maybe the thing. And I would say that this has been very crucial that we have this kind of a cross-functional setup, because this kind of a new platform or product development, it takes it needs huge amount of people, and we need to have that kind of approach if we want to build or develop a future-proof engine for the future.
If you think generically about this kind of transformations, I think there are several phases. And one of these first phases usually for companies is that they start this increased communication in the form of PI planning or big room planning and face-to-face communication, which is one of the agile principles that you communicate more face-to-face. And this increased communication and agreeing about the interfaces, agreeing about the dependencies, that is something we have learned to do on the software side as well, but that is alike helping on the hardware side. And that is also helping when you get the transparency to all ongoing work, you get the transparency also where are the bottlenecks, and you can start to discuss and manage the bottlenecks, like increase the capacity in the bottlenecks or work around the bottlenecks if you can't increase the capacity. And I think this is a very different approach to traditional project management that is just kind of pushing the deadlines. And now you start to understand like what is really possible and how you can make most out of what you currently have. The tools and the people and the way of working starts to improve. Also, the engagement of the people starts to improve.
Exactly. I would say that engagement topic has been very important if you think about why we have been kind of successful with that we have a plan together, we have a go forward together, but we have also celebrated together regularly, and we have involved all those people to celebrate, and that has been part of the engagement, and now they kind of want to be part of the common or bigger team. And that has been.
So I want to take this forward. As Maarit said, this approach of involving everybody and being very mindful of creating the right interfaces and ceremonies to involve people is a key change towards traditional project management. But inbuilt in this new product development program, there was also a much bigger change compared to the traditional approach, which is this idea that we involve manufacturing from the beginning, right? So how were you able to bring along people from the manufacturing side, even though at that time, potentially, you had very little more than requirements for the new engine?
In the beginning, it was more kind of, we had those design for manufacturing experts, for example, working as a part of the team. So those were representing the manufacturing. And then when we go forward, we had the new product development, we have this kind of NPI department, and that's the representative from the manufacturing side. So the contact point between R&D and manufacturing, and that person has been very much involved together with those other experts from the design for manufacturing. And then we have had also sometimes so that our R&D people are going to the manufacturing floor to discuss with the people also, and experts and designers, our project managers, etc. So they know that who is there doing our job and collaborating with them.
And one interesting aspect we talked about in the prep was also how you took quite different approaches to the manufacturing steps, right? Like, in traditional project management processes, you would have those gates, and then at some point there would be a gate where you would, do a sample of the engine, but you guys actually did this quite differently. You used simulation, you used prototyping, you used, was it single piston engines? Was that something that you used? Like what were the actual practical aspects in which you brought manufacturing earlier in the process, even though the whole engine wasn't yet developed?
Okay, that was the single cylinder engine I think you referred, but yeah. So basically we have kind of a mixed elements from the traditional and agile approaches, but still I would say that we are maybe more agile than traditional. But anyway, yeah, that's the hybrid. And how we have then done that, we have there, maybe the hybrid approach is that we have there in the background the end-to-end high-level plan with the milestones, etc. So that's coming more from the traditional. But then this high-level plan is also evolving regularly based on that incremental rolling bay planning and also those achievements, etc. that we are doing.
So if you think about this whole process, traditionally, it takes a long time to first you make the design of the product, and then it takes a long time in the end to make the design manufacturable. And in a way, when you bring the people from the manufacturing to think about the requirements from the early stage, the manufacturability requirements don't come as a changes in the end, but you start to take those concerns into account very early on. And this approach is actually saving time. But this is also you need to take this into account in your milestones, because if you have this ensuring manufacturability with verification and validation in the very end, this approach is actually harming you. The traditional milestones are in that sense harming you. So you need to have some sort of understanding of the end-to-end how the product is done end to end. But what Henna was describing is this two level, where the lower level is this kind of like a rolling planning, one increment at a time. And then you plan this kind of like an increment with such a detail that you can actually know what is happening, and then you correct the overall plan based on the feedback and based on the learnings what you get as you go through. This approach is actually described in one of the research papers I wrote earlier, so piloting agile methods in hardware development. It's exactly the same approach. Please, Henna.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, thanks, Maarit. That was exactly what I tried to explain. So this kind of a two-level planning, that there is the high-level plan, and then there is also this kind of a incremental short way planning. And you ask about this approach where we splitted also the engine development into smaller pieces, and how we use those simulations and this small scale testing, for example, now this single cylinder. So due to those, I would say that we have had now maybe shortened development cycles. We have had faster findings, faster results, and that's why we have also had kind of a faster development. And when we speak about this small scale testing, I mean exactly this, for example, the rig testing. We may have rig testing for the fuel injection, just for that. And then if we speak about the small scale testing, we also refer to the single cylinder testing. And the single cylinder is kind of a slice of a full engine. And with that, we can actually test and we can validate new designs with a very cost-effective way. So that was maybe the benefit of those. And that these simulations have been also part of the development since the very beginning. As I mentioned, we have had this cross-functional approach, and how we set up the teams. One element was that we had the simulation expert, we had the designer, for example, sitting next to each other, and they were also kind of working as a part of the same team. So it was much maybe faster to discuss about these things and go through the results and validate different things, etc. Nowadays, we have also the testing people part of the different teams. So
that's a very significant change. Like if you think the traditional development, where software department is very separate from hardware department, this is really kind of like having this cross-functional team, where you have the software people who are responsible for the simulations, the hardware people doing their work, and the testing people working at the same team. This is really different approach.
Yeah, so it sounds to me that in this particular case, the bringing earlier the testing of ideas through simulation, small-scale testing, rig testing, and ultimately later on, as you just said, also bringing the testing people earlier in the design process. It sounds that this is a key success factor for your goals with this new product development.
Yeah, I would say that has been one of the key elements that during the whole journey. Yes, exactly. And hold this kind of a setup that we have involved those people to work according to the same way, and also ideate together, share the results from the tests, etc., for the bigger audience, so that we have a awareness, like big awareness, what others are doing, how this work is affecting to my work, and etc.
One of the things that I wanted to talk about is that, of course, now we're talking about a success story. It just happened, right? Like you released the engine recently. You just went through this process in the last few years. And one might be excused to think that it was easy, but I bet it wasn't. When you think about this new product development program approach, what do you think were the biggest challenges of using this hybrid agile approach in this particular program?
I'm not sure if the challenge was exactly the hybrid. It was maybe that we bring something new. And it's always when you doing the transformation, it's hard. People always or normally resist when you bring something new. So that's, of course, one of the cases. And but if we think about this agile or these events we bring to people live. It was time consuming in the beginning. And that was one of the challenges. People were thinking that before they saw the benefits that, okay, this is just taking their time. It's more meetings, etc. So those were kind of a challenge I saw in the beginning. But then after people started to see that how this is also, why this is beneficial, how this is helping them, then it went forward and we get like more and more people on board all the time. So I don't know, that was maybe, yeah.
My experience is that takes roughly, usually in organizations, like half a year or so before people start to really see the benefits. They just play along and then they start to see the benefits as they see that, hey, we are actually able to overcome some of the challenges that would traditionally harm us.
Yep.
And Maarit, just on that note, you have been involved in this new product development program, but also in other companies and in other types of programs. What have you seen are the main challenges when bringing in this agile way of working into a hardware context?
Yeah. So first, hardware people usually they object by saying that agile doesn't work for us. But now, as we see that companies like Tesla and SpaceX are giving a great example of using agile methods in very, very fast development environments, like Tesla's sprint cycle is actually 3 hours, not 2 weeks like in typical software cycle, but 3-hour cycle. And in that, this kind of cross-functional team is actually making a new prototype or manufacturing a new part and integrating it in the system. And so this is setting an example and giving an opening of thought, like, yes, this might be possible also in the hardware setting. And then the next object is like in the software was the same. People say, yes, it might work somewhere else, but it doesn't work over here. So you first bring in this increased communication and this face-to-face communication and dependency management. But then as you start to understand these bottlenecks, and typically that is the phase where you just enter developing new tooling. And when the new tooling starts to be in and it supports this new way of working, then that's a point of no return. So then that's kind of like it's there. And one of the things I've been noticing is that it's not everyone who is actually interested about processes. So majority of the developers, they are interested in technology or they are interested in something else, and that's perfectly okay. So it's typically like 10% who are really excited about these processes. So you need to kind of have this management support and allowance of money so that you are allowed to try different things and fail. Because I think also in hardware development, every company is slightly different. So we need to understand how do we apply these principles and ideas in your specific case. And we need to give people a little bit more money, a little bit more freedom to explore, change some of the existing terms and contracts. Because if we think about the traditional hardware development, usually what people are very interested in is the cost of the product. And if you have very cost-conscious mind, then it's very hard to do this kind of change. Actually, I would say it's almost impossible. So you need to give money to allow both to use these trainings, to use the consultants, to use the coaching, and to use money for this new tooling, to try different things, to have a little bit more freedom. And then the outcome is actually that this kind of process changes, they are paid by the performance increase that you gain and the quality that you gain when it's done correctly, but also kind of it ends up in doing things that you never thought were possible before. So new kind of capabilities, like in this case as well. So eventually Henna's team was able to do things that nobody thought is possible to do. So they have first in kind of product. And that's great achievement. It's not just good, it's great achievement. And also what I see is that this kind of change is becoming more and more crucial for companies, because if you look kind of what has happened in the manufacturing side, the increase of robotization, the automation, the industry, so-called Industry 4.0, it's giving us ability to do these short cycles like the increase of CPU power on the software side was enabling DevOps. This kind of like new type of manufacturing is actually enabling us to work with the faster cycles. And we need to change our R&D processes, because in some companies, the R&D is now slow and they have already the manufacturing capabilities, but they just haven't realized that this change is actually happening right now.
I really like that, I call it analogy to what happened in software, because actually DevOps came from the ops side. And this is very important to realize. It came from the ops side because our R&Ds, even the agile ones, were so slow that the interface between the development of the product and the deployment and operation of the product needed to transform, DevOps, in order to be able to be fast enough for what operations already needed. And this is actually quite interesting because in a previous episode, I think it was 2 episodes ago on this series, we had also a discussion of how manufacturing was pulling R&D to be faster, because manufacturing was through things like 3D printing, for example, or, manual manufacturing of the first few samples and so on. They were able to pull a lot more from R&D that usually could take, whatever months or even years to develop a certain part or component. But then manufacturing was already pulling that in cycles of like 1 or 2 months, right? And one of the key things that then happens is that we now become or create a synchronization problem. And if we give this technology to manufacturing and manufacturing cycle goes faster, like 3D printing being an example, then it starts to pull changes from R&D. R&D needs to adapt to that. And I know, Henna, you guys have been explicitly tackling this through your synchronization and common planning and prioritization cadence. Can you introduce that aspect of the new product development program, the common planning and synchronization points, and why they were important for you?
Why they're very important? I would say that in general, it has increased the awareness of the big picture. So people know what others are doing, how my work is affecting to others' works, and also vice versa. On R&D level, we have now also taken in use this kind of a common prioritization and planning cadence or model. And the point here is that we are planning according to same cadence. And one of the benefits of that is that we know that how much, for example, resources we have and we need to use for the certain priorities. And we have that kind of a planning there for the whole organization. It doesn't matter if those people are working according to more traditional project model or according to our scaled agile framework there or according to this hybrid agile model, but we all are on board according to the same cadence. So it has helped to understand that how we are from the resource wise and our priorities. But then we have also had this kind of a synchronization on our program level. So basically, since the beginning, we have been setting the targets according to this common cadence for the whole value stream. And we have also made the plans according to that, so that everybody, not only within our R&D project or program, but the whole team is aware that what we are doing and what are the targets, so that we can go into the same direction. And we have also tried to visualize those in some tools or the physical whiteboards, etc., so that people have the understanding all the time there that what are the targets, where we go, etc. And that's why the synchronization has been maybe also easier. And towards the rest of the maybe organization, it has been easier to have those synchronization points that, okay, during that time, we're going to share that where we are, etc. And when we have those in place, people know that, okay, when they're going to have the information and when they will maybe deliver something or release something, etc.
I think those synchronization points, they are also a great source of motivation, as you can see what is the status of the development, but also as you plan towards the synchronization point, you make promises to other teams, like what your team is going to provide for them. And that is very motivational, because you don't want to let the other teams, your colleagues, you don't want to let them down. So this is really important. It's also very empowering as the people do the plans themselves. So they need to understand their work and manage their work. And this is a typical agile setting that the objectives come from the management, and then the people are kind of saying how they are reaching those objectives.
Exactly. Actually, the decision-making approach has been also one crucial point there during the program. So even though it has set the guides or the frames in the beginning of every increment or sprint or period, as we nowadays call those, it's only kind of the leading and steering coming from the management. But the actual decisions, those has been made where the knowledge also exists. So that has been kind of the sentence we have said many times during the journey, that decisions should be made where the knowledge exists. And that really means that, okay, the frames are coming and the steering is coming from the leaders, but those decisions are made within the teams when it's possible. And that has also, I would say, built that kind of a we can do spirit for the whole team, that yes, we are here together and we have the responsibility, but we also want to do that, and we are here together.
So I wanted to explore that can-do spirit, because one of the goals that you had at the start of this program was that of adapting to changes. And there's actually a great story about this, right? Like after the start of the program, your company's focus started to shift more towards sustainable fuels, and you had to incorporate that into the design, already quite much into the process of designing the new engine. So tell us that story, Henna.
Oh, yeah. So when we started, it was the world was different. And during this journey, the world has changed actually quite much. So, for example, the focus to the sustainability has increased very much on company level and also otherwise in the world. So during the journey, we have a kind of we changed the direction a bit few times, and one of the changes maybe was that we decided to take this sustainable fuels development as a part of the program. And especially now when we speak about this specific product, we speak about ammonia development. And that was the fuel. We take it as a part of the program. And that way of working, we had also enabled our people to focus a lot also to that sustainable fuel development. And I would say that that was maybe due to the way of working, that we had this kind of a reaction to changes already existing in the program, and we were able to change the direction when it was needed, even though it was maybe there already in the beginning, but the focus increased a lot during the development.
So was it so that at some point there was kind of an announcement, a discussion in one of those common planning sessions? How did that transition to the new requirement coming in? How did it happen in practice?
Of course, it took a time. There were a lot of discussions regarding that. But after it was decided, it was easy to say that, okay, we go into that direction more and more, and we're going to focus on that. And as a result of that, nowadays we have the first world first ammonia engine coming from that product platform, and it has already published.
I remember that discussion coming to me in a form of a phone call. And what I was being asked is that if there is a kind of a decision to be made, whether to just follow the process or whether to just make great product, like the process and product, you can't optimize the both. Which one should you optimize? And my answer is, you need to, this is awful thing to say as a process coach, but you need to optimize the product, because the product will eventually pay everyone's salary. And the process exists there to help us to build great products. And I don't know, I hope this was helping them to make the right decision, but this is really what I think, that the great products is the ultimate goal.
Yeah, exactly. So what is needed to have the great product? And I would say that this kind of a setup is helping us to change the direction when it's needed. And I would say that the flexible product platform we have a kind of a built since the beginning has been enabler also, that we have the platform where we can have a different views and etc. So it's since the beginning built so that we can have their add-on options and we can add their different technologies from our large technology basket and etc. So it has built so that it's flexible.
Mm-hmm. And flexible is one of those words that goes very well with agility, right? And that's something to keep in mind, that companies that need to be flexible will benefit the most from agile ways of working. Now, we're getting close to the end, Henna and Maarit. Let's start with you, Henna. What is one resource, maybe a book, a podcast, something that you could recommend for our listeners who would like to go deeper into the topic of agile in hardware?
Okay, I didn't think about any in general, but I was thinking about if you want to hear more about this topic, together with Maarit, we were speaking about this same case, and also Maarit was speaking about the topic in general in one of the Scaled Agile webinars. I think maybe it can be shared, the link also afterwards, but that was one of the cases, one of the podcasts maybe to recommend here if you are interested about this case or in general about agile in hardware, because both topics are covered there. And of course, if you want to hear more about this specific Wärtsilä 25 engine I'm speaking, you can go into the Wärtsilä web pages and find out this Wärtsilä 25 product web page and guides. So those are.
And we'll put the link in the show notes, make sure that people find those easily.
Yes.
How about you, Maarit?
Well, I've written several research papers and also this white paper on agile and hardware. And I'm working on a second white paper, which is explaining the business reason for hardware. I believe that will come out at some point, or if you just email me, I can share it with you. And however, there aren't that many books around on agile hardware. So what I'm currently working on is I collaborate a lot with Joe Justice, and we kind of are thinking that as Joe knows how Tesla and SpaceX are working, I'm trying to build a bridge for these traditional companies to how they can go in these faster cycles and really prepare for the future and prepare for the sustainability requirements that are coming from us, for example, in the form of the legislation from European Union that is actually setting new requirements for product companies, and also to kind of prepare for this digitalization, and kind of like the software is playing more and more crucial role in products. I think that's other change, as well as this manufacturing change is kind of challenging companies. So Joe Justice has written a book called Scrum Master, and even though it's titled as Scrum Master, it's actually a lot of the examples are from hardware world. There's also some books by Paolo Samieli. There is also this oldest book is from Preston Smith about agile hardware. So it's called Flexible Product Development. I think it's still valid, even though I think the book starts to be now 10 years old. And then there is one book explaining how Scrum is used at Saab. So that's by Ullman. And then there is an industrial DevOps book by Suzette Johnson. So those are all the books actually currently existing. So I can just list it. There is so few. But,
okay, we'll put the links in the show notes, make sure that people can easily find them. And how about you? Let's start with Maarit. Where can people find out more about you and the work that you are doing?
So my research can be found at ResearchGate. We can also provide a link there. And me you can find at wikiagile.com. So that's the company I'm working for.
And how about you, Henna?
Maybe the LinkedIn is the best place to find what I have been doing and where I'm working. So go into the LinkedIn and to my profile, and I think there is everything.
Absolutely. And we'll put the link to all of those in the show notes, make sure that everybody can find them easily. Maarit and Henna, thank you very much for your generosity with your time and your knowledge.
Thank you, and I'm looking forward to continue this journey together and explore this great new world of agile hardware, because I think this is always what's been kind of ticking me, is that to try to understand how to do things better and how to do some good for the companies and the people working in the companies.
Exactly. Thank you also from my side. That was a great opportunity for us also to be here. So thanks for inviting.
We really hope you liked our show. And if you did, why not rate this podcast on Stitcher or iTunes? Share this podcast and let other Scrum Masters know about this valuable resource for their work. Remember that sharing is caring.